Hi everyone, Kratos the Polish Geek welcomes you all to another opinion piece video, and I decided to talk about one of my favorite video game franchises, the God of War series. It's actually one of those video game franchises where I believe that there is not a single bad game in the franchise. I literally love them all, and the thing I want to talk about is how I think that the franchise should end. What should be the absolute finale for the franchise? And the interesting thing is that those actually were the original plans for how the series should end, but sadly, it seems they've sadly been abandoned now, and no surprise there. I mean, we live in the modern world, come on, so it seems like those original plans were sadly abandoned, even though I think they still could work amazingly well. If you just had people who just think a little and actually maybe be brave enough to stand up against the modern narrative. But whatever, in this video I'm gonna talk about what should be the absolute perfect finale to the God of War franchise. Again, it likely won't happen, at least not anytime soon, but maybe in a couple of years it's gonna die down, so who knows, but as of right now it seems doubtful this would be the ending for God of War, even though, again, I think this would just be a perfect ending. And again, if you've been watching my channel, you probably know I'm a Roman Catholic. Original plans for God of War finale were, and you can even see that in God of War 2, and we're getting to that very soon actually, but original plans were to have Kratos kill all of the Greek pantheon, like he actually did, and then his Norse counterpart kill all of the Norse gods, and Egyptian one all the Egyptian gods, and then the three of them would meet and become the three wise men who would witness the birth of Christ. And it is theorized that the creators abandoned the idea, which again sucks, but it's to be expected in the modern world. And it really sucks because again, I think this would be a really magnificent finale, and having the very last shot of Kratos and the two other men who maybe the series hasn't actually introduced yet embark towards the star, and the game ends, but most people would know what is happening. Of course, we know this likely won't happen these days. We know that the game developers either are very much hostile to Christianity themselves, or at the very best, too afraid to stand up to the mob. Whatever, it's obvious that unfortunately in the modern world, it seems currently this amazing ending sadly won't happen. And I even seen some other people actually wanting for the series to pave way for Christian lore and mythology to be playable, but I'm very no on that. No, no, and once again, no. Again, Kratos and the two others should just head towards the star, and the series should completely end. Putting in Christianity would not only would be too controversial, but also it would very much ruin a lot of interesting potential interpretations and very much kill some amazing imagination. So again, Kratos heading towards an unknown destiny with the two other wise men and maybe mention of baby Jesus born should be the absolute ultimate ending to the series. Like again, that was even the original plan. And in God of War 2, when Kratos defeats the Sisters of Fate by trapping them in the mirror, but before his final battle with Zeus, his father, the king of the gods, final battle in God of War 2, not his actual final battle with his father in God of War 3, but yes, before the battle with Zeus in God of War 2, but after trapping the Sisters of Fate in the mirror, we see three murals, and one of them is the battle between gods and titans, and then we see a figure surrounded by carnage and everything destroyed, and of course we all know that's Kratos, and then the end of God of War 3 very much confirms that this figure is indeed Kratos. Who else could it be? And then there is a third mural of three travelers heading towards an unknown destiny. And yes, original plans were again for Kratos to team up with his Norse counterpart and an Egyptian counterpart, and then all three of them would become the three wise men, which would just be so awesome. Again, even though this almost certainly won't happen in the modern world, but what's interesting and also kind of sad is that it actually now makes sense more than ever for it to actually happen. Like we all know, in Norse mythology games, Kratos is much wiser and a far cry from the destructive Kratos, and is a true moral wise man. by God of War Ragnarok actually. Honestly, after seeing even more Pantheon destroyed, a role of a very wise man, which again, he kinda is anyway during the events of God of War Ragnarok and God of War 2018, but that would just be perfect for him. And him, together with two other wise men, embarking to see the birth of Christ would be such a perfect way to end the franchise as a whole, of course. Yes, that would mean we would likely need 2 more games in the series involving Egyptian mythology, or maybe even a different mythology. There is such a huge quantity of amazing world mythologies that honestly I could see creators going to any world mythology, but Egyptian one seems most likely anyway, and most logical with how many references the series has done to Egyptian mythology already, especially that we know from the comics, which I haven't read but heard a lot about them, that Kratos in between God of War 3 and God of War 2018, that Egyptian gods are very real in this world, as are the Persian gods when we see the Persian king in Chains of Olympus using Ifrit, a creature from Persian mythology. Reason I say 2 more games because so far it doesn't seem like any candidates for 2 other wise men have been introduced, and I would rather have at least one of them not be some random character to just accompany Kratos on his journey, but an actual character we get to know and love with his own important character arc. Maybe someone who's also pretty evil in the past like Kratos, but either way it should be someone that the game actually takes its time to introduce and give him his own important character arc. And as for how do all the world mythologies coexist in the God of War series, well, that's entirely different debate, but I think that this God of War YouTuber, the Midgard Chronicler, he has described it way better than anyone has ever did, actually. I think. So yeah, if you want to know how all those mythologies coexist in the God of War universe, then I think this is a perfect video to watch. I mean, I always imagined it exactly the way he described it, but I just think that he described it perfectly. So yeah, how do all those world mythologies coexist? I suggest that you go ahead and watch his video. But then he also later addresses in the video actually how there is actually the source of all the creation and how all those world mythologies have been created from one specific source, and I think that further actually ties into the fact that it should end with Kratos and 2 other men going and witnessing the birth of Christ, because I actually like to imagine that this original source is, yes, Christian God. And yeah, it's probably me as a Catholic that why I wish that, but I actually think it makes perfect sense anyway, especially that Christianity is actually confirmed to exist in the God of War universe. Cory Barlog even confirmed it. He said it's part of it, but he didn't exactly say how. But I actually think making the Judeo-Christian God basically the origins, that would actually, I think, make perfect sense and be pretty consistent actually with what the Bible actually says about God. Especially that what people even don't know is that there is even Bible verse that does talk about plenty of different mythologies actually, and basically says about those like smaller gods that don't let people leave their areas. So I actually think that would even be pretty consistent with this Bible verse, the world of God of War, but perhaps we are getting a little too religious over now, but I still think it's a very important point to address for this video. So yes, I think that Kratos becoming one of the 3 wise men and then embarking towards the star to witness the birth of Christ with the 2 other wise men would be a really perfect ending to this awesome mythological franchise. Again, we live in the modern world, so it most certainly won't happen, because we know that the video game industry is very much hostile to Christianity. So sadly, as of right now, it doesn't seem that it's likely gonna happen. So I guess this video, me explaining of why it would be so awesome, is probably the closest we're ever gonna get to something like that. And the mural at the end of God of War 2, of course. But again, who knows though? Sometimes miracles happen, and as we are concerned, it's entirely possible that the video game industry will realize what gamers actually want, and so miracles happen. So you never know. But as of right now, it doesn't seem very likely. So again, the mural in God of War 2 and me talking about it is probably the closest we're gonna get. Something like that. But, again, it would be really, really amazing. So, thank you folks for checking out this video. Press the like button. Please subscribe this channel. And I will talk to you soon in another video. Talk to you then. Bye.